Hey, what's up? Ward Wrestling Live here with Lincoln High School coach Mike Crowder. So we're back, we're live, 2 o'clock showman. So this guy has quite a resume. 6-time FACA Coach of the Year, 10-time Big Bend Coach of the Year, 4-time Northwest Florida Coach of the Year. He was inducted into the National Hall of Fame for wrestling, as well as the FACA Hall of Fame for wrestling. He has coached a numerous champions, state champions, placers, and just has done a lot for wrestling, especially in Florida. So we'll get into that. Originally from Naples and now up in the Panhandle. So I should have worn my University of Miami hat for him since he has his Florida State hat on, but I didn't. How are you, Coach, man? Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you. I know everybody's kind of been at a standstill now. What have you guys been doing to keep your wrestlers kind of moving forward during this time? And what are we looking at as far as time for you to be able to get everybody back in the rooms and back into tournaments?
Well, we just got our guys lifting, trying to just get healthy and get strong, which is what we can do at this point. We're kind of waiting on our school district to make the decision on when we can come back. I think they're going to make it in the next 2 weeks to decide what we can do. So we're kind of waiting for them. We have a couple of local wrestling clubs too, so we're waiting for the okay for them too. So that might be able to, we send them there in the meantime.
Okay, great. So it sounded like there you were fading a little bit, but it sounded like there that you're waiting for this next phase to happen. I know we're in phase 3 right now with being allowed to open the rooms and stuff, and it sounded like you were saying you're just kind of waiting to get to the point now where you can open back up.
Yeah, we have to get approval from our superintendent. He has to tell us if we're allowed to do anything or not. So it's all about superintendent. When he says we can go, we can go.
Nice. So have your kids been doing like virtual training, things like that, or just trying to keep in shape?
I don't like we haven't been doing the virtual workouts, but I do like we've been on them about getting to the gym and lifting, and they're going, and together. They've been working out together. They've been kind of calling each other back and forth, and we talk to them all the time. All right, make sure that you're lifting, make sure that you're, if any kid that we had an injury with, before, we're trying to get them to slowly heal up and feel better so that when we do get started, we can go running.
Awesome. So I'm talking with Mike Crowder, coach at Lincoln High School up in Tallahassee. And he was just letting us know about what the kids are doing. So strength training, it sounds like is the important thing for you during this time. You can teach skills in wrestling once back on the mat.
Yeah, we're kind of we're in a better situation than most with that, because we have a wrestling class, an athletic class, so that once school starts back, we'll have a couple months before the season, just in wrestling class to do work where a lot of folks don't get that option.
Nice. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Lincoln High School wrestling and how it's evolved since you've been there. You've been there for a long time, and talk about your culture. Talk about the kids in your room. Just tell us.
Well, this is my 25th year as the head coach at Lincoln. Actually, I got the head coaching job when I was about to turn 22. Wow. We weren't very good. They were 0-9 the year before I got here. They were 3-6 the year before that. They had some history of some couple state medalists over the years, but nothing great. And we just, I came in and I had to get them tough at first, and because I didn't know what I was doing. So, we aligned them all up and we wrestled. And I had 6 seniors quit the first week, which was unfortunate. They just were not ready for that kind of work. And, the one senior stayed and the good group of juniors stayed. And and we just kept working through it and getting tougher and just building on everything. And, I think that one of the things that I'm lucky with is that I get to surround myself with good assistant coaches. We're so close to Florida State, and there's a lot of great wrestlers who go to Florida State that do not wrestle in college. We're just there, and we scoop them up, and they help. Edwin Ray's a great example. He spent a lot of years in our room when he was in college up here. And he's doing great things as a head coach down at Golden Gate. So, and, there's tons of guys, and me being from Southwest Florida helped too, because all the coaches and a lot of the kids down there knew me already. So when they come up here, they're like, oh, I want to wrestle. Oh, where's Coach Crowder at? So they call me up, and we get guys from Fort Myers. I mean, it's been great just having that. And, we've just tried to instill a lot of things about being a good man and getting through to that point where, yeah, it's great. We love to win. We want you to be successful, but, I want you to turn in your math homework. I want you to make sure that you're doing the right thing so that the teacher's not going to call me. And that's one of the things I did when I was really early on was, don't make me look bad. If you make me look bad, we're all going to suffer. So, and that means that if a teacher yells at you, she's going to call me before she calls your mom, and then we're going to have to deal with that. So we kind of, and I very rarely have issues. I love, my kids are awesome. They're great. A lot of them haven't wrestled before high school. They start as ninth graders, and it's amazing what we can do with them in 4, because we don't really have a good support system. We've tried and tried and tried, and to fight the system to try to get middle school wrestling to be bigger in our area, and it's been a struggle.
We had the FSU coach on.
Oh yeah. No, those guys are great. The FAMU guys spend more time over here with us than the FSU guys do. But they do. They get over here quite a bit. They're great guys. They're old friends of mine, and they'll show up with a bunch of guys and just battle. When it's club season. That's
awesome, man. So, a hell of a program that you've been building over the years up there, and doing really good things with these kids. So, I know there's a couple tournaments up there that I know are big and dear to your heart. One being the Trojan Invitational, which is a newer tournament that you started about 6 years ago. And then you've got the big Capital City Classic that you want to talk about too. So talk about those 2 tournaments, talk about why teams should bring their guys up to those tournaments, and how they've been going and the history, I guess.
Well, Capital City, this is the 25th year of Capital City this past year. It started off as a 16-team IBT. Actually, it was at Godby when we first started. They were the first guys to start it, and they ran it for a couple years. When the coach from Godby, when the past head coach, when he moved to Texas, Dennis Kidco took over and ran it for a couple years at Godby. And then when he moved, he called me up and he was like, "Hey, you have to take this. You can't let this die. You have to continue."
Well, I think he's frozen there a little bit. Give us a minute. We should see him come back on. He's talking about right now he's talking about the 2 tournaments that he has up there. One is the Trojan Invitational, and the other one is the Capital City Classic. So I know he's in an office room at the school, and the internet has not been treating him the best, but he'll be back on in just a second here. But we're here with Lincoln High School coach Mike Crowder, and he's getting into a couple of big tournaments. He's been there 25 years, a long-time coach since he was just 22 years old. And we should have him on. Here he is. Here we go. He's back.
Yeah.
That's okay. So what happened was I lost you, and then I just told them, hey, I'm here with a longtime Lincoln High School coach, Mike Crowder. He's talking about the 2 big tournaments he has in town, the Trojan Invitational and the Capital City Classic. He's been there a long time, since he was 22, just kind of filling in. And, and then you're back. So welcome back.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're all struggling with internet right now. So.
Well, I mean, for Capital City, one of the great things about Capital City, it's because we're so close to Georgia, we get good Georgia teams too. I mean, this last year and the year before, we've had Camden for a couple of years, which they're top notch. And we've had Colquitt down here. We get some great schools. Cairo's been here. Some great schools that are from South Georgia that love to come down here too. So you get to see teams you don't usually see. And for us, I mean, we've had teams. I mean, Key West came for years. Miami Somerset came for years. So we get a hodgepodge of Jacksonville, Central Florida, the Panhandle, which it's hard for a lot of guys down in the normal part of the state. They just don't see the Panhandle guys, but they all come here. So it's a good way to see teams you don't usually see. And that's, Key West came through and Somerset came through for a bunch of years so they could see Wakulla, so they could see Arnold. So it's been a great tournament.
What do you tell the teams that, because we have a new team. It's only been about 5-6 years at the First Academy, and where we struggle is we haven't yet been able to fill all 14 spots or 15 spots. What do you tell teams that don't have a full lineup about maybe they're hesitant or they don't want to come up there or to a tournament because they only have half a team, or is it a dual setup? Is it an IBT? What do you recommend those coaches do?
Well, it's an IBT, so and my thought has always been on that. You have to know who you are. If you're not a dual team, you don't go to dual tournaments. If you can do both, that's great. But you have to know who you are. Guys like Jay Campbell and Bricker, they know who they are. They're great at it, right? So they go to stuff that makes them great at what they do. So if you've only got 7 guys, then make them the best 7 guys you got, and then go to round robins and go to IBTs and get them pushed and tested. It doesn't have to always be a dual meet. We're blessed. We're at Lincoln because we usually have a really good dual meet team, and we always have a pretty good IBT team, so we can do both. But that's just something because we're at a school that's big enough to do that. We have 2,000 kids, so it's a little bit easier for us to put that together. And our football team's always supported us, so that makes it better too. I always have plenty of big kids, and that's a big thing for a lot of teams. They just don't get heavyweights, and we got the guys that are walking around our team. Other schools walk up to us and go, "Man, we don't have guys that look like that at our school. Where do you find these guys?"
Yeah, well, the problem is getting the football coach to support your wrestling team. Not support it. I think coaches support other athletics and coaches support the school TFA and whatever. But as far as supporting, I mean in a way where they allow their linemen to get into the wrestling room, or they allow their bigs to go get better.
That to me has always been about selling it. Because see, the thing about football coaches is, they want to know that you're not cutting weight off the kid, and they want to know what you're going to improve for them. So we always sell it to them the same way, because wrestling coaches teach pass blocking like nobody. Nobody teaches pass blocking like we do. They just can't do it. They can't. And I sell it to them like that. We're going to put them in a stance, and we're going to make them shed guys for 4 months. I said, where else would you want your offensive linemen? And on the other side, where would you want your tacklers, your linebackers, and your defensive linemen? They're going to shed blockers and shoot double legs, which is basically just tackling all day long. So when we put it in perspective for them to show them what we're doing, because really, for the big guys, we're doing tackling drills. We're moving our hands, we're moving our feet, we're getting in front of people. So I kind of decided that a long time ago is to use that as a selling point. And a lot of our big kids, they all get college scholarship offers. So it doesn't take too long to see it. When you're a football coach and you're like, hey, what does this kid do? Oh, our leading tackler, he's a wrestler? Yeah. What our best offensive lineman? He's a wrestler. Well, yeah, of course he is. That's what we do. We're teaching them to get better for you.
Nice.
So you have to sell yourself to them.
TJ Gillen, the Capital City Classic is a great tournament. It's a great preview for the 2A1 region tournament.
Thank you, TJ. TJ's a great one. He's doing a great job, Matanzas.
All right, so I know that you were not the only one, but you were a big part in spearheading bringing the state dual tournament to a point where it matters. I know we've had some discussions, especially with ref Mike Cipriano, about making some adjustments because there's teams like Southwest that should have been there, but they're in a side of the bracket that's tough with South Dade and things like that. But talk about the importance of having dual tournaments and dual state tournaments and things at that level, and what made it so important to you to make this one of the big ones.
Well, so dual tournaments to me are important because it gives kids a chance that might not ever make it to the state tournament, that are on your roster, that are contributors, to make it, and make a difference. It's amazing actually seeing what kids will do. And, I know people are upset about bracketing and all that kind of stuff. We don't have any control over the bracketing. That's the way the state runs team tournaments. It's the same way for every division of every sport. The way the Final Four is determined is the same. So they don't really, like, even in football, I know that they changed the power system, but it doesn't matter. The only team that comes out of the region is still the same team that would come out of the region. So I know it sucks in that aspect, but there's not really a way to fix that part. But
Yeah, like I guess watching a first round matchup where it's like 82-0 is like, oh man, that's rough. But you could have had, but then again, you get another first round matchup that we wish was a final in Jesuit and Lake Gibson, right? So you get kind of the both ends of the spectrum there.
You do. We fought for this for a long time. Especially me and Rick, me and Tribbett. I mean, we were on the committee a long time ago as youngsters trying to fight through this thing, and really, like, we used a lot of things that other people in the state had produced. Like one of the setups that I originally used was from John Lawton, and which he submitted to me a long time. Him and Vic Lorenzano, and we just kept working and working. The reason why we got to this point, though, is because the guys that were in place to help us, our wrestling liaison, which the last two have been phenomenal. They're the real. Robbie Lindeman and Dale Kloss were huge in helping us get this done. And then, when we started talking to the board of directors and we started talking to the athletic directors, the people in the FHSAA office were on our side. They were politicking board members behind the scenes for us. Like, they would be like, oh, I got this guy for you, Mike. I got this guy for you, Mike. And so that's how we got that done. We're doing the same thing for girls wrestling actually right now. We're trying to make sure the board understands what we're doing. And anybody that knows any of the board members, sweet talk them, make sure that they know what we're voting for when we get there. It's a big deal. And I hate the fact that it's politics, but it's the kind of the way of work. So, and I know everybody wants it to be faster too. That's not really how it works. We have to go through the process, and it's the way every sport has to do it. But, getting the dual state done, I mean, we got it approved 2 years before they actually implemented it, but that's because they were trying to figure out venue. If they had let us we told them big Orlando school, just run it there the first couple of years, but they weren't sure they wanted to do that. Otherwise, we'd have had it 2 years before.
Well, which I understand, and I've only been over there, I think maybe once or twice for a tournament at Osceola, but it was run amazing. And from what I understand, those guys do it top notch. So that's why people are looking for them to be running these tournaments. And I guess his name is Jim Bird, I believe. I guess he does
Bird,
a phenomenal
job. Bird's phenomenal. He does an amazing job. His support staff and his program as a whole is top notch, and they do incredible work. With every tournament you go to, like every event they run is second to none. They just do such a great job of running everything. We go there for the Super 32 qualifier. We've been to the knockout, and everything that we've been to there has been top notch. So yeah, he does a great job. I can't say enough about how good a work they do. Plus the breakfast sandwiches are outstanding too.
How do we get the knockout and Capital City to be to a level where they can compete with the Beast and Ironman?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think the knockout's one of the toughest tournaments in the country. I mean, I've been to a bunch of things, and that one, man, I mean, I've never been to the Beast, but that, and it's not Super 32 or anything, but man, that thing is brutal. You got to, when you're going there, just for the experience, it's incredible, but just to get on the podium is work. We only have one kid that ever medaled at that thing, which was Justin Grant a couple years ago. And it was everything we could do to get him on the podium. He did a great job. He ended up taking third. Wrestled a bunch of state champions on the way through, which was awesome. But man, brutal. But I don't know how you get it. The problem is you have to get out of state teams to come down. You have to, and it has to be a time frame when they can do it. Christmas break's a great time for them to get it done. For us, we're in a tougher situation to get, just because of where we're at with our date. It's hard enough for us to get guys there anyway, because it's kind of right before exam week. It's just kind of something that it's been that way ever since we started it, and it just kind of never moved. So for us, but still though, I mean, we get great teams up here. It's brutal, if you're going to win it, especially right now, if Camden's still in, if you want to win it, you better be ready.
And I mean, if you want to watch some of the Florida greats in the middle of your state wrestle at Christmas time, I took my son there to watch the last day of the knockout. And I mean, we got to see Jacobs Hines, we got to see Brettley Reyna, we got to see the Basiles, we got to see Abden, you go through it. Danny Martinez, I always mess up his name, the other state champ over at Southwest, Seguido.
Yeah.
I mess up his name. He's probably laughing at me right now, but you get to see all those amazing Florida wrestlers right there on the mat. And then to see some of them, that's where some of them got their only loss of the year. And it was at the knockout. So to tell you how strong it is, except for Danny Martinez, I spoke to him. He's like so quiet. I'm like, hey, isn't that a tough tournament? Those Georgia kids are tough, right? He's like, no, I pinned mine in 30 seconds.
So there's another tournament up here.
Like, wow.
So up here, we have another tournament that's really, really tough too, but it's not ours. Travis Laxton runs a really, really good one. It's called the Beast of the Beach, and it's the weekend before ours. And it's brutal too. We've been there before. When my son won that one, there was another weight class that had 4 state champs in it, you know, just in the semis and the finals. It was amazing, you know, seeing who came out of that thing. So very similar, you know, just brutal. But the knockout's by far the toughest tournament in the state of Florida, for sure.
Yeah, and it's good because as people start to hear about it or continue to hear about our tournaments, that'll bring them down here. So I know I was reading that this year was your silver anniversary, 25 years. Congratulations, Coach. That's phenomenal being at one school for that long. But I know that when you were being interviewed for that article, one of the things that stuck out to me is you really didn't discuss how proud you were of your wrestlers at wrestling. You were more proud of how they evolved into like amazing humans, getting into college, after college, becoming, you know, functioning adults. And so talk about how important that is to you and what that means to you to see these kids becoming decent life members of our society.
You know, it's funny though, you know, one of the things about us is that we have a huge coaching staff, but they're almost all former wrestlers. They all come back and give back. They all come back. And to me, that it's amazing. Like, I know they all can't do that because depending on what your jobs are, but you know, one of the things I put a quote up the other day. Ken from Competitive Edge asked me to put a quote out there, something that we use and that we believe in. And, you know, I tell the kids all the time about having a great attitude and giving great effort. And if you do those things, and most of the things that you will encounter in your life will be easy, you'll be able to surpass them because things get hard, you know, but what are you going to do? You can't cry about it. You just get back on there and you get after it and you have a better attitude because you're going to be upset. You're going to be down sometimes, you know, and to me, pushing that through, making sure that you're a good human. Yeah, we want to win. We want to win. And we get fired up in the moment about losses and things like that. But in the end, all that stuff fades away. You know, you just want to know that the guy's successful, you know, and he's taking care of his family later on. And those are some of my favorite things is when they come back and they go, hey, I just, you know, I got this, I got that. You know, I mean, the girls wrestling thing that's going through, one of my ex-wrestlers said something to me about it the other day, and he's a doctor. He works at Shands. He was like, hey, that's pretty cool that this is happening because he's got you know, daughters. I was like, oh yeah. This is something we're trying to get done, you know. So I guess in the beginning it was probably more about W's, about getting respect and like this is who we are, and you know, and still want to win. I still, you know, we missed the state finals close last year in duels, and about broke me. I hadn't been questioning myself very much. And Guglielmini had to kick me in my ass the next day. Like he was like, shut up, get up, what are you doing? You know, so it's like, this ain't you. So I appreciate that. You know, he really kicked me in the pants. He wasn't the only one. I was moping and my wife was like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? You know, but you know, in the end, you know, that's when it comes out. It's like, all right, is that what's really important? Like we did that, we got to this point, which is amazing. You know, I can't feel bad about winning a regional title. How can I do that? What's wrong with me? I remember when I couldn't win the first one. It took me 16 years to do that. You know, and now we have 10. You know, it's one of those things like, what's important in the end? And really, you know, because most of these guys are never going to be state placers. They're never going to be state qualifiers even, you know, 80 and 90% of your team is not going to ever get that. If you have a big enough team like we do, you know, they're just going to be guys on the team. And what are they doing later? You know, those are some of my favorite things. Like where are they now? What are they doing? Did anything that we do make an impact on you? And, that's the one thing that really, really comes out when that article got posted. It had hundreds and hundreds of comments on it from older kids that were like, Coach, this is why this is important to me. This is why it was important to me. And just, and it's amazing thing. Like any just silly things like that, like a little article. And I didn't even know he was going to write it. Actually, he was supposed to do it when I got into the Hall of Fame, and he was going to attach it to something else, and it never happened. He forgot about it. So I was at the Trojan Invitational, and I'm just sitting there coaching, and he's walking around like interviewing my assistant coaches that all wrestled for me. And, Coach Pafford, who wrestled for me, who's the head coach at Wakulla, him and his brother and his sister were all in my program at some point and wrestled great for us. But he interviewed those guys too, and local coaches around here that were all friends. So, and he finally got to me, and he just started, I thought he was going to ask me about wrestling. And then all of a sudden he hit me. I was like, whoa, is this about the Hall of Fame? What is this about? And he goes, yeah, just let me ask you questions. And he asked me deep questions on the edge of the mat. We were coaching. So it was surprising. And then when I read it and saw how deep he really went, it's super funny because the front on the article, you see the picture of me standing there coaching, and underneath the caption, it says, Mike Crowder coaches a Lincoln wrestler. He didn't realize that was my younger son that I was coaching at the time. So
nice.
Super funny, wrestling makes good humans. We do, you can't go through that much struggle and strife and pain, and because it's not fun all the time. You can't do that and not develop a set of life skills. And I know, and like in everything, we got some that aren't, but for the most part, we make good humans. We make good men, which is what you want. And that's why, we talked about earlier about, these college coaches, about being approachable. Man, wrestling college coaches are like nobody else. You can talk to any of them. If you go to national convention, they'll all talk to you. Just walk up and say, hey, I'm Billy. I'm from here. And they'll be like, oh, hey, they're just good people.
Awesome, man. So, it's good. And I know reading a lot of that stuff and looking online, you've really produced a lot of great people out of that program. So good job, Coach. And obviously hearing you say that is one of the reasons why I started this program, was just so people can see. People don't get to meet the Lincoln High School coach. People don't get to meet the Key West coach. People don't get to meet the Wakulla, and there's all these humans in wrestling that make these people that are in our country now doing great things, and nobody knows what their roots were, and they get to see who planted those roots. So it's been pretty dope doing this. So awesome. Good for you. So speaking of that, all this has finally culminated to a point where you got your ass into the Hall of Fame. So congratulations. Good for you. After all that hard work, what did it mean to you to finally get that nod and be there?
It's surreal. Like even like when I got into the Florida Hall of Fame first, and just standing up there was just surreal. I couldn't really, really believe that it was happening. And then to get into both in the same year was even crazier. Just standing there next to these guys that friends of mine that I respect, and even looking out in the audience to, guys that I just have so much love for me to be a part of that is just amazing to me. Even walking through the line, in my speech, I loved it. I wish I would have got to finish it. I didn't get yanked off the stage.
Did they hit that? They hit that bell like ding, 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 ding?
No, but Wilbur Johnson had to pull Albert Pardo off the stage before me. And when I was doing my speech, I wasn't even halfway done. And Bobby Burns flicked that light, and I was like, "Do not send Wilbur up here for me. I've got to finish this thing." And so I did my best to run through it and get it done. But I just sat there and I still do. I sit there and I'm in awe of the guys that are in there that, and they'll talk me up and tell me, just like Ron Jones always did, you're freaking incredible, you're a stud. And I'm like, listen, man, I'm looking at you guys. like, I still have lots of things that I want to do that you've done that I haven't done that are amazing, you know. And to me, it's always been about just being, you know, I'm happy that I'm a part of it. You know, when I got inducted, you know, they do a testimonial brunch, and you got two guys that speak for you. And Will Pafford and Tristan Summer, who was a state champ for me, and Pafford, who's, you know, they've been in the state finals with color for a couple years in a row for duels. They both spoke for me. And when they got done, you know, we listened to all the speeches, and Balmaceda came up to me and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "it wasn't even close. Those guys love you, man." He goes, "Those guys, that is why we do this thing." You know, and that meant a lot to me that, you know, that they appreciated my speeches, and that, you know, the guys that, you know.
That's cool. Yeah, I had Coach, I don't know if you saw Coach Mike DeAugustine.
Oh, yeah.
DeAugustino. And he said, I said, "Man, hey, what did it mean to you to get into the Hall of Fame?" He said, "It means I've been doing this for too long." That's what he said.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's hysterical, man.
Means I'm old. Does that sum him up in like a whole?
Oh yeah, he's hysterical, man. You know, I've known him for a long time too, because he started coaching in Florida around the same time that I started coaching in Florida. It's really funny because the FAC clinic was a huge deal back then for wrestling coaches. And, you know, just, we would all sit around, and it's a lot of these guys like Andy Glucamini and Jim Reap and D'Agostino, they were Lorenzano. That's how I really got to know all these guys, is that I would go to these clinics when I was 22 years old and just sit and listen and learn and soak everything in that I could, you know, about how to do anything. And I think there was like, out of the 25 years, I've only missed one. And I think it had to be because I was getting married or something crazy. I don't even remember why, but you know, it's just soaking all that knowledge in from all those guys. And again, you know, just to be a part of that Hall of Fame crew, you know, there's some incredible guys out there that will get in and that deserve it. And, you know, it's amazing just being a part of those guys and hearing their stories too. You know, just listen to where they came from and how they got to this point is really, really amazing.
Cool, man. So you have been coaching in Florida for 25 years. You were also a wrestler out of Naples. So you did wrestle as well in Florida. So you've been involved in, you know, 30 something years in our sport here. Talk about the growth of Florida wrestling, where it's come in your time. And then also talk about the importance of girls wrestling too, and getting that thing in the right direction as well.
Yeah, I got really lucky. You know, when I moved to Naples, so I grew up in Kentucky, and when I was 12, going in 7th grade, we moved to Naples, Florida, and East Naples Middle School had wrestling. I never even knew wrestling was a thing. I came from Kentucky. All we do is play basketball. So you know, and football was terrible up there at that point. So, I mean, it was never good except for some high schools that I'd never heard of, but, you know, it was just basketball. So I got down there, and PE coach did a long unit on wrestling and tried it. He was like, "Oh, you have to do this. This is your thing." You know, and it was really, really funny because, you know, there was about 10 of us that were all pretty good at it, and we all did it the entire time, all the way through high school and everything. So we wrestled in 7th and 8th grade, and then moved up to Laley. I started Laley in 87 and ran all the way through. And they had a great history of wrestling. You know, there's a lot of state champions there. You know, guys like Jeff Mastari and Petroselli and Blasucci. They incredible history, and getting to wrestle with those guys all the time made a big difference.
Petroselli, that's the one that knocked out. Isn't Petroselli the one that knocked out the dude that, unfortunately, he's passed away now, but isn't Seth Petroselli the one that knocked out that guy in the UFC?
Oh no, this is Jeff.
Jeff, okay.
Yeah. He they had a bunch of really, really good ones back then, and you know, those guys would come back and help us. But you know, seeing wrestling change, you know, it's crazy because, you know, we had, wrestling was big. You know, dual meets were big. Because I grew up in Southwest Florida, so it was already big there. You know, and it's still good there. I mean, it's amazing down there how many state champions still come out of Naples and Fort Myers and all that whole area is crazy. And just to be in there, you know, and it's definitely changed though. You get to see it, you know, move around, and even power moves around a little bit. Now, we were in the region of doom when I was in high school. It was 3A12 was outrageous. One year we had like 9 state champions and like 4 regional final rematches in the state finals from our district and region. It was crazy. But that just seeing it change and grow, continue to grow, get bigger and bigger. And, our divisions are filling out. We've got, 130 plus teams in each division. I know that, it's not everybody has, 14 guys, but we got tons and tons of teams, and we can fill it out even more. I think we'll stay the size we are. I think we'll stay in 3 divisions, but it's incredible watching it grow everywhere. And me having grown up in Southwest Florida and then come up here to see just the Panhandle grown. Because really, when I first moved up here, it was just Suwannee. Suwannee and to a lower extent Wakulla, and just to see what's been done even the past 10 years is amazing. Even in just my town, but that's because Will Pafford and Clay Allen and James Marshka, they work so hard, and we help each other in our area just to get them to that level where all those guys are getting state placers every year. I can't say enough about how tough we are nationally too. We're right there. We're doing a great job all the way through the state, and I'm proud of all these guys. And again, I think that comes too with everybody helping each other too. It's a big deal. If you have a question, we're in a good position, like guys that go to Jazztown, because Guglielmini brings his team up here every year on the way to Jazztown, and we take turns running practices and teaching things, and we'll let Goog run a practice, and then Crowder run a practice, and then somebody else run a practice. So the kids get different feels, and no holding back. The kids got questions, they want to get good. I'm all about teaching kids how to wrestle. It doesn't matter who they are, where they're from. We've had kids from other places that come over here and work out. And if you're going to be a state placer somewhere else, I'm all about it. We'll help you. We'll get you to learn. And now you got girls wrestling about ready to explode.
Yeah, how come it's not sanctioned yet? And what are we looking at to get that to explode? I know there was like over 360 girls this year at Dr. Phillips, which is up like 400%. And some of the tournaments, who I got to meet, some of the directors just from the show, having the coaches on, said that their tournaments just over the last 2 years has gone from like 6 girl brackets to 60 girl brackets. Around the country, I've talked to people like Coach Chris Ayers up at Princeton, where he said that the girls tournament, the girls state tournament in Atlantic City this year was over 750 girls. So obviously this sport is growing, not just here in Florida, but everywhere. And why are we behind the 8 ball at sanctioning it?
Well, we're not really behind the 8 ball. We had almost 800 girls this year in Florida that were registered, like in boys wrestling, which is amazing. So we are way ahead of other states in numbers. Our problem is that we had to get them to jump through the hoops to sanction it. So we've had 2 votes for the athletic directors, and they both were unanimous to support girls wrestling. On June 8th, we're going to do the same presentation. Lindsay Dahl and John White and I are going to present, and Robbie Lindeman, to the board of directors. If they are good with it, they'll pull the trigger, and then it'll go right back to FHSAA, and they'll have to decide when to and how to implement. But our biggest problem is because of the way the rules work for FHSAA, you have to go through the steps. So in a process. So we've already been in we're in our second year now. So we should be good to go as long as we get, as long as the board of directors are on our side and they understand what we're doing, and they should be. 22 states in less than 2 years? It's outrageous. Just in the past couple of weeks, more and more states are picking it up. So I think that they were more timid of how are we going to run it? Where's the money going to come from? Blah, blah, blah. But see, we alleviated a lot of their concerns because we don't need a state tournament venue because we're going to run it right next to the boys. Okay, we've already talked. Jim Bird and Rick Tribbett have already worked out all those.
There's plenty of room at the Civic Center.
Yeah, and they've already done all the details. They know how they're going to do it. They contacted me a couple weeks ago and said, listen, if they ask you a question about venue, we got it. We've already worked it out. We know how to do the schedule.
Yeah, isn't Blasucci's involved in that, right? Blasucci?
He's on the committee with me, yeah.
He had mentioned that. He said, when I had him on, he said, we already know how to set up the mats. We already know how to, and it would probably be a better tournament if the girls were there too.
Well, it'll be outrageous just because it'll be just the amount of people that will show up to watch the girls will be crazy, And so I think that we're in the home stretch right now, and I know folks have to. You got to be patient, And one of the reasons why I know this is because dual state took so long for us to get through, But it was more of a patience game. You can't be negative. You got to lay out the positive. This is why it's great. This is why it's going to be great, and this is why it's going to be good for the sport, And I think that it's going to blow up our numbers on all sides, actually, because the fan base is going to be way bigger because you're going to end up having, girls' parents and boys' parents that are going to be fans of each other, and it's going to cross over because we're going to be together. I can't see it just not exploding. And really, if you look at the numbers of other states, we're ahead of most states already, and we don't even have it yet. These are just girls that are brave enough to wrestle on the boys' team. Imagine how many we'd have if they had their own squads. So
it seems like how important has Lindsay Dahl been? She just seems like and I just got to meet her as she came on my show, but it seems like she's been at the mountaintop screaming as loud and trying to help this out as any, huh?
Yeah, she's doing a good job. I have to reel her. She'll get upset and call me and go, "Hey, why is this?" And I'll be like, "All right, listen, this is the way it is." Because she really wants it to be done, and I agree with her. But so we end up having these Zoom meetings with me, her, and John White, and we kind of talk each other off the ledge and make sure that we're good, make sure everything's in perspective. This is when it's going to happen, and this is how, And but I do get the frustration though, because I've been there on the other side before when it was duels, and when you really, really want it, to get them to say yes, and they have no reason to say no. The FHSAA is on our side too. They know they want it. It's growing like crazy. Our border states have girls wrestling, which is a huge deal. If they have it before we do, is one of the big things that helped us with dual state, because Georgia's had it forever. I'm like, well, guys, what are we doing? Why are we late to the table? And we are, because of the process. And it's really to no fault of them. It's just the way it's set up, and we have to jump through the hoops and make sure that we do everything right, and so they can say yes.
So when I get asked, because some people ask when I have them on the show, there is a meeting on June 8th. So we'll have more answers coming out of that, correct?
Yeah, and Lindsay and John are doing a great job. Their presentation is outstanding. We have to update it all the time because new states keep adding and the numbers keep changing. So, but they're doing a great job. And then, I try to handle a lot of the logistical questions because they're going to ask about money. Where's it going to come from? They're going to ask about fundraising, where it's going to come from. They're going to ask about practice facilities, and we already know how to do that. Boys and girls basketball have been sharing the same courts for 100 years. We'll get it. We got it. We'll figure it out. Those things are not a big problem for us. We'll make it work. And besides, it's going to blow up our numbers anyway. You're still going to get to coach wrestling.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right. Those were a lot of really good questions. And I'm glad to have you on, because I know that I was reading, but you're real involved in all these committees and all these voices in wrestling in Florida. So I knew that by asking these questions, I'd get more in-depth answers from you than most that just kind of, they're in wrestling, but they're not on that side of it. So they kind of just get answers when they show up in emails or whatever. So
no, they email me. That's what they do. They're emailing me. Listen, if they have rules questions or anything about FHSAA, they always call me. And it's funny because I don't know how I became this guy. Like I think about it sometimes, like, how am I this guy? That anybody that has a rules question, okay, when they don't want to talk to an official, or even if they are an official, they'll call me. Like Jeremy and I talk about stuff all the time. We're like, oh yeah, what about this? What do you think about this? And Bob will call me and say, all right, well, this is what we're going to do here. And so it's weird because I never thought that's not why I wanted to coach wrestling. I just wanted to teach some kids how to win. And that was it.
Now you've become the guru. That's awesome, man. So you ready for 10 questions?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So high school scoring or NCAA scoring?
NCAA scoring.
Backwoods or cool beans?
Backwoods.
Double leg or inside trip?
Double leg.
Naples beaches or Panhandles beaches?
Naples beaches.
Moses Lake or Naples?
Naples.
FSU football or baseball?
I want it to be FSU football.
But that baseball program's on point, right?
Yes, they are.
Deep brewing or proof brewing?
Oh, Deep, by far my favorite beer is at the Deep. Next file.
32 or Fargo?
32. Oh my gosh.
You got one place to go. You go to live goes or clinics?
I don't like clinics. I want to battle. We go to live goes.
Nice. And here we go. A good Florida boy. Stone crabs or lobster?
Lobster. Love me some lobster. My boys in Key West are smiling right now. I'll say hi to the Gemini and Flanagan. Oh man.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, my dad lives down there in the Keys, so I know that one of his big battles is making sure that, you know, we want you to go get lobster, but don't take the illegal ones. Let them grow so that we can keep harvesting and we can keep tourists coming and we can keep people living down here. So it's been fun. Hey man, this was great, Coach Crowder. I really appreciate you. You may be the first coach I've had up in the Panhandle. So this is awesome, man. There's more people signing up. I know as I'm on the phone, it's been incredible. I'm fully booked this week. I'm fully booked next week. I'm halfway booked the week after. So send your coaches, send your kids. I'd love to get Wakula. Wakula, is it called?
Yeah. Pafford would definitely be a good one. Clay Allen would be a good one. Those guys they're awesome, man. They love to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Forward them my link. Help me out with Ward Wrestling Live, everybody. Please go on and like it and join it. It's my new show page. I finally have done enough of these where I had to put one together. It's been fun. I'm on YouTube. I have no idea what I'm doing on YouTube, but I have a channel there and I finally got over 100 subscriptions, which I know is very small, but that is my first goal. So I'm there. Please reach out, and I love you guys. Thanks for everything you do for the kids, and I'll talk to you. Let's talk anytime. Maybe you should come on Ask the Ref with Mike Cipriano.
Yeah, that'd be great. He's a good one.
Because we get a lot of rule questions. So he kind of
coach's side versus official side. Those are always interesting.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure once we get people on the mat again, there's going to be some stuff, but
yeah, we got to figure out what we're going to do. But they're good at figuring out how they want to organize everything and letting us know what they want to do. But at least we don't have any major changes where we have to really, really work through some. So the ones 2 years ago were weird. We had to actually we had to do it first before we could figure out how you were going to call it. We had to see it.
Cool. Well, I do appreciate you coming on, man, and enjoy the rest of your week.
You too. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.